Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Courtney. Of course, sitting with my best bud, Tone. What's up, Tone?
What's happening, brother?
Today's a good one, man. We got one of our favorites back.
Yeah, I mean, this dude. I can definitely say when he talks, I am totally intrigued and all in.
What was that commercial? E.F. Hutton. Is he your E.F. Hutton?
Yeah, is it E.F. Hutton?
I don't know. We'll figure it out. And it's not that important. So today our guest is Gavin Salsbery, and Gavin is a coach with the Summit Salon Business Solutions, or SSBC, or something, whatever that is.
Business Center,
whatever it is. We'll get into it. He'll yell at me. He'll yell at us in a second about it. But yeah, dude, I am so grateful and honored to have Gavin in our world, because he just brings so much.
Yeah, I mean, he's lived it, he's done it, but I mean, he knows his stuff.
And he's another dude that loves the hairstylist. I think it's so cool that we've been able to we're starting to create like these people that are truly the hairstylist is in their best interest.
Right.
And with Gavin, with Schedulicity, with all these people that we're kind of like surrounding ourselves with, and the hairstylist are their numero uno in their business.
Yeah, and we've had this conversation with him before, and we had it before the start of the podcast, where, I mean, when he sees other people succeed, other hairdressers succeed, it excites us. It excites him, right?
Yeah.
He's truly, I wouldn't say like a proud papa, but kind of a proud papa kind of feeling, it's like,
Papa Gavin.
Yeah, Papa Gavin.
I like Papa Gavin.
Right?
Papa Gavin. That's all right.
Yeah, so when he goes into a salon and coaches them, and when he sees the changes and he sees the increases, I mean, there's got to be a sense of like, wow, job well done.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really awesome. Should we bring him in?
Yeah.
All right. So, Mr. Gavin,
Papa Gavin.
Papa Gavin. So, Mr. Papa Gavin, welcome back to your day off.
What's up?
Super
up, excited to be here. As always, it's an honor to be here with you guys today.
Stop. The honor's ours.
Yeah, truly, man. We truly appreciate you.
Hey, thank you. And everything you were saying, I do. I think I said this on an earlier podcast, but my mother, she did right by making sure I really understood that my shoes came from the hard work of a hairstylist. And when I say my shoes, because literally when we'd walk to our family salon when I was just a little boy, I mean, she was already pointing out things that you probably wouldn't know when you're 6 or 7 years of age. You look down at your shoes and you realize, I don't know how much the connection was there, but it made sense that I saw them doing hair, and then I'm looking at my shoes thinking, oh, the connection of their hard work pays for my shoes.
Wow.
So that started early. And then, I think as I got older, you just kind of always, and I'd like to say I don't hear it as often, but the beauty school dropout whole philosophy, it's fun to put on your cape every day and walk in and out of hair salons, really trying to fight that, and change that. And it feels so good. It feels like it's why I get out of bed every morning.
I mean, literally every time we just talk or just have a conversation, I am so intrigued and I am so glued in with what you're saying, and I can't get enough. And again, I just really appreciate it.
Well, awesome. And I'm excited about today. Today, I really wanted to spend some time on just pricing and looking at, what's that look like for you, the listener, your business? Because I don't think we're all in the same category, even though we all have a professional hair license. That doesn't mean that, I can raise prices the same day that someone across the country or in a different salon can. And what I wanted to try and teach and have a conversation about is just there's indicators, and being more mindful of those indicators so that when you are aware and you understand that, here's my indicators, I'm ready for a price increase, then I think you lose some of the fear, you increase some of the self-confidence, and through both of those, ultimately, I think you gain more self-worth. And so the indicators that I wanted to talk about today was really looking at the area household demographics, because I'll use just quick examples on each one of these. Where our salon's located and where your salon or where your suite is and my suite, the people that live around me, the household incomes are not always going to be the same in every locality in America. So I think you've got to look at household income, and there's some more information I'll dive into on that one. You got to, I think, look at the new traffic. Like for example, if I don't get any new clients, very few, I very seldomly get a referral. I don't get a lot of walk-in traffic. That's going to be I'm in a different position than another stylist who does kill it on Instagram and get a ton of referrals and lots of new traffic in their chairs. That's really a night and day scenario. So I think you've got to look at new client traffic flow as another indicator. Retention of business, just your overall retention. I don't think there's one industry like here's retention and only retention, and this is the only thing we look at. But I think there are a couple of things to be mindful of around retention. How many visits, if you had someone sit in your chair, what's the likelihood that they return? And so they call that like a first visit retention. And then that you can look further out and say, what about 3 visits? And so when you start to really kind of get your head around retention, I think that's one more indicator. And then one more indicator is the cost per square foot. So my suite cost might be different than your suite cost. And so what I'm paying for my space isn't always going to be the same in every suite. And this would also be for just salon owners in general. Same. Your square footage isn't always the same in every location you walk into. So based on the square footage cost, I need to be mindful of pricing my services so that I can really pay my rent for my space. And so like a quick example there is if I've got a suite in Beverly Hills and I've got a suite in a small town in America, those rent rates are going to be significantly different. So ultimately, I'm going to pay a different price per square foot for my rent. And how I price my services, I really need to take into account those two, that price per square foot, because obviously if I'm paying a higher rent, my pricing needs to match that higher rent. I in a way, I don't really have a choice. And if I'm not careful, I might be just doing a lot of hair, generating a decent amount of money, but I'm really not getting ahead financially because I'm paying, for my cost of goods and my rent. So I think that's one more. The cost per square foot is one more indicator.
Awesome. So let's tackle them one by one. So let's start where you ended, and is there a formula for your cost of rent? Can we look at it? Is it possible to look at it differently as opposed to like a cost per square foot? Can we look at it from like this is what it's costing me per week and kind of break it down that way?
The formula that we teach at Summit is if you can get what your cost per square foot is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to just do a generic example. You guys want to make up a number? What would be a number
square footage or a cost
for a monthly rent? If we just used an average suite in America, what would you say is a number?
Let's do it.
Say $1,200, $300 a week.
I mean, I was going to go with 1,000 just to make numbers easier, but sure.
Right, $1,000.
$1,000 for the month.
Okay, so let's do 1,000. So they're paying 1,000 every month, and they're going to pay that 12 months throughout the year. So for the year, they're going to pay $12,000 for that space. The average suite space is what, 10 by 12?
Sure.
So that's 120 square feet, a 10 by 12 space. So if I'm going to pay $12,000 over the course of the year, and I'm paying for 120 square feet, a 10 by 12, my rent is about let me do that again, 1,000 a month divided by a 10 by 12, 120. That's a really high one. You're paying about $100 a square foot for that. Now, that probably is not a good example because I think your space might be a little bit bigger. Let's take a different one. Let's go with 1,000, but let's go with a 15 by 15 space. You have your shampoo bowl. So your 15 by 15, you're looking at 225 square feet. So $1,000, 225 square feet times 12. You're paying about $53 a square foot when you're paying. So I'll go back and just quickly go give you the numbers. We said $1,000 a month for your suite.
Yep.
And it's a 15 by 15 space. You're coming in at about $53 a square foot is what you're paying. The formula is you have to generate at least 2 times the square footage cost. So $53 times 2 would be $106. Your average ticket should be at least 2 times your average square footage. So that'd be $106 average ticket. See, that's very, very important, very intentional. It's based off of the reality of your space versus maybe someone else's. It's going to be different. Maybe they're paying more, maybe they're paying less, maybe their space is bigger, smaller.
So Tony and I, we both have suite mates. So in our scenario, would you take that same square footage and then divide it in half?
Yeah.
So if it was like 15 by like 20 or something, we'd take that square footage and then just divide that in half, and that's the way we'd figure it out?
Yeah, so 15 by 20, you really have 300 square feet in that space. Yours would be 150 square feet if you cut it in half.
Got it.
And then you're just taking the rent, the 1,000 divided by the 150, you get $6.66. But because you do it, it's an annual formula. So I need to multiply it times 12. You're looking at $80. So your average ticket in your space should be close to about $160.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. That's huge, man.
It is huge. It is really huge. And this is why I think you see the occupancy. A lot of people will sign a 1-year lease for a suite, but oftentimes going into year 2, they can't really swing it. And that's why to me, this conversation is super important, because pricing's important, but pricing gets you to an average ticket. In the way of the world today, you're not doing very many single service clients, right?
Right.
Not to say you don't do a few, but your bread and butter, your client that's really going to help you get ahead is the multi-service specialty color client. And that's why you need to get that ticket with that type of client. It's a little more doable by the time you add the haircut, the color, whether it's, a balayage or a treatment, and you start to stack 2, 3, 4, or 5 services, and it's more realistic that you can get that average ticket to that mark that you need it. Here's the downside. If you don't, then you just have to do more volume.
Right.
So then, and that's where I think long-term on volume. I think, it's great when you're young, but as you age, I think you're really putting a lot of stress on your body. I think it can be also just tricky when you're doing a high volume with, multi-service appointments. How do you fit in when some of these appointments might be 2.5, 3 hours? You're trying to fit, a lot of clients into a certain window of time. It's making it tricky to fit that much volume in because of the time allotment for each appointment. If that makes sense.
So you're saying, okay, so I got my square footage set out. I got my pricing. I mean, what I should be bringing my average ticket to. Okay. But not just that, those aren't just the only indicators, correct? I mean, what if I have all that in place, what do I still have to consider?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So when you look at household demographics, there's a formula that on our prep last time we talked a little bit about this. Is we use a formula where we're looking at whatever the average household income is of the area that you're developing your business. And you can literally Google that. You can go online and just put household income with whatever zip code that you're in. Now you're going to get, and everybody should do this. When you do that, just know that you're going to get variations. You're going to have this website saying this amount, this website saying this amount. But you need to know that, Tony, because if I just go off of, if I just pick a number out of thin air, and let's say the salon, the chair that I'm renting, my household income around me is $75,000. So the average household in my area is $75,000. Now there's a formula for that. So what that means is a person who's making a household that's making $75,000 a year, that's a $36 an hour. If you break 75,000 down and you literally break it down to an hourly allotment, it's $36 an hour.
And that's 40-hour week. Is that what we're talking about?
40-hour work week. Yep. Uh-huh. So all we did is we found an example of a household income of your area. I divided it by 52 weeks. I divided it by 40 hours. I got $36. The minimum I would want to charge for a haircut and style in that household demographic would be 1 times the hourly average, which is $36.
$36.
So if let's say I'm just beginning to build my business, I'm just starting out, that might be my lowest price point to begin for my cut and styles, 36. But we also can we only multiplied that by 1. We can multiply it by 1.5. So that would be 54. So somewhere between 36 and 54 would be a haircut price point that really matches what the household income level is of the area that I'm in. And that's super, super important, because without knowing that, I think you're just kind of licking your finger and putting it up in the air. I mean, there needs to be some kind of rhyme to the reason.
That's amazing. I mean, that's who knew? I never kind of knew that, you know?
Yeah, I got a lot of work to do.
I'm
going to go home. Yeah.
Calculate it
Oh my
out.
goodness. Yeah.
That's awesome. So mainly, so this pricing that we're talking about, it's mainly for, if you're starting out a new salon, or, trying to figure out where you fit in yeah, exactly.
But not really, because imagine, Corey, let's say you've been doing hair for 20 years and you're at a price point that if I did that same math and I just see that, oh my gosh, you're charging 35, but yet you can go 1.5 times that average hourly, which put it at 54. Mm-hmm. So for example, if I were doing coaching with you and you're like, I'm at 36, I'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. You're on the low end of that. You're only 1 times the hourly. We need to get it closer to the 1.5 times the hourly, which is 54. So now the conversation with you, the plan, the price increase, it makes more sense. If we just looked at that one indicator, it looks like you're ready for a price increase. Versus, this is what we see everything, like both sides of it. But versus, let's say, Tony, you're charging $75 for a cut and style, and I go to do the same math and it shows the same numbers, 36 on the low end, 54 on the high end, but yet he's at 75. Now I've got to really look at other indicators a little further for you, Tony, because you're already beyond the boundaries of that formula, which is possible. I'm not saying that's not impossible, but the reality is we don't want to outprice yourself out of your market. And sometimes that can happen if we don't use some kind of indicator on the reality of what people earn in my market.
So you're saying I'm more vulnerable to something that could happen?
Oh, let's say you're at 75, you don't look at any other indicators, and now you go up to 80 or 85, and you're already north of what that household formula is. You could see more attrition from your business. You can see, I think attrition would be number one. New client acquisition is harder. It's harder to get a new client when you're way outside of your household, that formula. That means there's people there that will pay it, but you're getting into the really infinite, like small, a group of people. So it's just being really, all the indicators would need to be very strong in order for you, I think, to make a smart decision and raise prices again.
I love this stuff. All right, what's our next indicator that what would our next one be?
I think you got to look at retention rates. Like looking at the reality of your retention rate, I think is super important, because here's what can sometimes happen. What if I'm in an area where I get a lot of traffic? I just do. I've never really had to retain it. It shows up, and I'm blessed. I'm in a good suite. I'm in a good location. Well, that business that's just showing up, and let's just call it walk-in business, that's different business than business that I've retained, the repeat requests. I've kept them long-term. Those are two night and day client bases. And so where I look at the retention rate is just really making sure that we're not going to raise prices when you're already struggling with retention. That wouldn't make any sense. And so when people ask, what's good retention? And I always, we just look at it basically, if you should be able to get at least half of all your first visits to return. That'd be the very first thing I'd look at.
So 50% on that.
Yeah. And I don't think that's like blowing the doors off of it. I think I'm just being super conservative. If we put 10 people in the chair in the month of December that have never seen you before, never had a service by you, can you get half of them to come back and see you within the next 90 to 120 days? You would be shocked at the industry when it comes to that statistic. It's probably in the mid 25 to 27%. I think I always hear 27%. So it's
Wow.
so there would be an example. Why would I want to raise prices if I'm already struggling to keep new people? And it might not be pricing. I don't want people to think of retention. The reason why people don't come back is pricing. It's usually a lot of different things. It could be pricing. It could be just the customer service. It could be the communication. It could be the technical side of it. It could be maybe it's the location, the decor. They walk in and then, it was tricky to park. It was tricky to find you. It's maybe not the greatest environment that I'm sitting in. So there's lots of things that play there. But I think just look at it from a 50% should be coming back to see you as a minimum.
Wow.
Then
so
yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry. So we have square footage, right? We have household income, which I love. Both of those I love so much, right? And then your retention rate. And then so kind of can we walk back through it?
New client traffic, I think, is the one of the other points that I mentioned when we were just getting started is making sure that you're aware of, before you raise prices, what is your new client traffic percentage. And I'll use a generic example. In the last 2 months, all I'd have to know is how many clients have I seen in the last 2 months? And let's just pretend I'm seeing, for easy math, I'll say 100 a month. So in the last 2 months, I've seen 200 clients sit in my chair in those 2 months. That's a pretty high number, but 200. How many of the 200 were first visits? Now, what we're trying to teach and get people to really, be aware of is you really need a minimum of 10%. So 1 out of 10 people should be new. 9 of them can be they're old, you've been around, they've old relationships, they're clients of yours. 9 are requesting, repeating, 1 is new. If that's where you are, that's good. You got 1 out of 10. That's not amazing, but that would be one indicator that you could check off the box and say, I think I'm ready for a price increase. Now, if it's anything beyond that, that's even better. 20% of all your traffic's new, 2 out of 10, that's awesome. But when it's below 10%, and you go back to, I've seen 200 people in 2 months, but I only have seen 5 new people show up. I just think that doesn't mean you can't raise prices, but you need to be aware of the reality that if you do lose some clients from the price increase, you might have to hustle differently to try to drive that new business. If not, it'll just take a while to kind of catch up with what you lost.
That totally makes sense. Wow.
Right.
We so you mentioned that, so when is it uh not a good time to raise your prices, right? So, and that's one of them, right? If you're not getting uh enough new clients, so when you raise your prices and you lose clients, it's going to take you a lot longer to rebuild that income because of, you're not getting the new clients. Is that the only?
Well, I think. Well, I'll put it on you, Gavin. Like we've done the indicators of how to raise your prices and when to raise your prices. Are there indicators that say, "Whoa, let's pump the brakes a little bit, and maybe we shouldn't do it"? And not necessarily using those, but are there other indicators outside of those that that would be of concern?
Yeah, like if you look at it from a price increase perspective, just raising prices, whatever you raise, what we see is at most, if I raise my prices 10%, so my $50 cut and style goes to 55. So I went up 10 points, 10%. I could lose at most 10% of my client base.
Hmm.
So that formula always matches. If I went up 20% on my pricing, I could lose as much of 20% of my client base.
Are you
So
making that money up though? Is the question.
you can make some of it up without a doubt with what clients stay plus the
Right.
10%. Um, but you just have to be prepared for that. And oftentimes that's the goal, right?
It's
Like,
to open up some space, right?
right. I mean, so sometimes we forget that, you got kind of one goal going on. Yes, you want to get what you're worth and it's time and the indicators show that you're ready, but also you want to try to get some openings in your availability so you can take on new business at a higher price point. So you do want to lose people, I think, but you just don't want to lose too many. And that's where the percentage increase, that indicator is super important so that, 10%, lose 10%. I'd say in the US, in the beauty industry, I'd say a 10% is probably the most common price increase. Not to say there's rarities. Sometimes it makes sense to go up 15 or 20%.
Hmm.
But I do think on the down low, on the bottom end, I would, if you're going to raise prices, do it. Don't just raise them 5%. Because then
What, what's the
what's the
point?
point? You really didn't see the increase that you wanted to get out of it. You're probably not going to lose any clients, which I know that might sound like a good thing, but I think you got to look at what's really the goal of that price increase and
Right.
making sure that if you do it right and do it 10% or more, to get the most bang out of your, because that's not something you're doing every day. I would
Right.
assume it's once a year, once every other year.
How many salons do you coach?
Personally, probably 50.
Okay, so out of those 50, I know there's a little concern, like if you watch the news and stuff, there's some indicators that we're heading into a recession. Are any of out of your 50, how many of those people are either concerned about it or are they changing? I guess the question is, are any of them changing their business to prepare?
That's a great question. I don't think anyone yet. It's so, I don't think anyone has yet. But I do think that you're going to see in the next 3 to 6 months, you're
Mhm.
going to see more action strategies, reality around a potential downturn in the economy. Um, like I was sharing with you guys, it's been 120, I think, 3 months since we've had a downturn in the economy. This economy has been roaring since 2000, I think, really 2010. So
Mhm.
for almost a decade, we've been on an upswing, and it's great. I mean, everybody is benefiting from it. The industry is benefiting from it. But I just think if you're out there listening, and I think it goes back to the indicators, if you're ready, you're ready. Do it. No time like the present. But I do think if you maybe have had some recent price increases, maybe you don't see as much new traffic coming in. Maybe, you haven't been all about your Instagram lately. And, some of the indicators just show that you're already kind of higher price point in your demographic. Those are the people that I'm not saying not to raise prices, but I think you need to really be aware of what next year could look like later in the back half of the year. If we were, and I say if we were to have some kind of recession or downturn, I think just be aware and really be cautious about that price increase.
That's awesome, man. You know, I'm just like, I love how like he just kind of like, particularly like with the square footage and with the household income, which I've never heard before, right? But I just kind of like, oh, those are real numbers. Like those didn't just come from like some arbitrary kind of thing, or I think what most stylists do, or certainly, and I'm 100% guilty of it. When I went from a Summit salon to a suite, like I was like, well, what's that Summit salon over there charging? That's where we'll start, because we know if they're making money, then I know that I can play in that same. I'll be making money, because it's just me, whatever. But I love that those are real numbers. Now I'm so incredibly curious as to go shoot my or go add up my numbers, and
100%. Yeah, I'm gonna go renegotiate my lease and say, look, I'm paying way too. I know you're paying X amount of number per square feet, and I'm like tripling, quadrupling that. I mean, I know right? I'm overpaying.
Exactly, overpaying.
Yeah,
overpaying, right? Yeah, nobody pays anymore.
Right. Yeah.
You know what's so awesome, you guys, is what's happened. I started consulting about 17 years ago, and it was a single service world back then. You had less multi-service clients then. Now, what is awesome, and I don't know how to explain this other than just say it, is in today's world, looking at analytics of salon industry all the time, is you have clients coming in. They're not coming in the old school way of every 4 to 6 weeks. I think everybody knows that. But they're coming in less. But when they show up, they have, in essence, like, sure, yep, I'll take that. Yep, I'll take that. That sounds good. And I don't think they say this out loud to the stylists, but in their minds, I without a doubt believe right now, they're like, I'm only here 4 times a year. Just hook me up. Just do everything you think is what I need. And if that ticket's going to be $220, $230, $170, great. Sounds great.
Right.
Thanks so much. Awesome. That is a different world than 16 or 17 years ago. When I started consulting, that was, you get a ticket over $100, and that was really starting to be, let's drop the ticket if someone else could ring them out, we were dropping and running.
Right. Drop and run. Yeah. Guilty.
And now, today, that number has really, it's no longer 100 is the drop and run. I think you're now into the 200, the 250. Like there's a number that everybody wants to, 300. Like there's a number you want to drop, and you still have that anxiety, but it's no longer 100. And I think that goes to show it's not so much the stylist that's changing. They're changing as the guest is changing. And nowadays, for a guest to walk in and spend that kind of money 3 or 4 times a year, I think it's a beautiful time to be in the beauty industry.
Well, hell, Gavin, 15 years ago, you still had $8 shampoos. There's not a shampoo that's under like $28 now. It's like everything. Those prices have skyrocketed, and it's happened really quick. And the first product that I don't know if this is it's definitely off topic, but hey, we're just having conversation at this point. The first product I remember was Pureology. Like Pureology came in at this like really high, like sulfate free, like price point, and it was like, I want to say it was like over $20 for the shampoo and conditioner when it first came out. And then all these other companies, started to like now end up like, it's funny because Pureology is no longer like, they're going to kill me, but it's no longer like this super elite, like price point anymore. Right. It's like, it's kind of a mid-range price point now, or even like lower to mid-range, like if like in that 25% like range. It's just funny how, again, that was the first product that I kind of remember that came in with this this regular available product, not like the super elite products. But I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you guys get it.
Well, what it speaks to is one of my notes I made for today was the 8%. And if you guys remember when we chatted a while ago, the 8% in any given market in the United States of America, 8% of that population loves to spend money.
Whoa.
They love it. It makes them feel good buying that $5 latte. They
Mm.
don't care about that $5. And it's not always, I think we always think, well, that's the well-off people, the do-gooders. And I think, yes, definitely they're in that top 8%, but you also get inside of that top 8%, you've got people that just value beauty differently than others. So even though maybe I don't have a ton of money, I'm willing, when I walk into a hair salon, I'm willing to buy that higher price point shampoo and conditioner set. I'm willing to spend, $300, $270 on my hair, because that is what I value. And I love that our industry, you guys, without a doubt, every year goes by and the value of beauty keeps increasing. And
Yes.
that to me is an awesome thing, to wake up and be in America and be in the beauty industry and to be doing hair today behind the chair, because society continues to put more value on beauty, which speaks to price increasing, which speaks to average tickets. It's a really fun, I'd go so far to say very lucrative time in the beauty industry if you know what you're doing.
I love that. And I got to that note, Gavin, while you were saying this just came in my head, but Tony and I, in the suite that we work at, we literally work with some of the best vivid artists in the country. Right. And they're putting out these huge tickets from very, very young people, and it's just about how they value, that's their value system, how those vivids look or how that color looks. And they're coming in quite often as well, so, and I know that those well, I know how much time they spend with each one of these
Right.
vivid clients. And most of them are very, very young, and they're spending a pretty coin on it. So it's just about their priorities and their values.
Mm-hmm. There's always services that come along that wake you up to what people are willing to spend. And I'd say in the last 12 to 18 months, it's been the hand-tied extensions.
Yeah.
Those things came into the industry, and it just seems like they caught on like wildfire. Lots of people went and got certified. But the amount of money that the guest is willing to pay to have the longer hair, the fuller hair, it kind of is one of those scratch your head, gosh, am I thinking too little? Like the Pureology concept, that you wouldn't have thought Pureology would have hit the market and been, they couldn't keep it in stock. And I'm sure that wasn't what everybody had anticipated, that people would be that willing to spend that much on hair care. But look, we surprise ourselves. Either Howard Schultz was probably one of the few people that thought, people don't want to spend 75 cents on a gas station coffee. They're going to spend $3 or $4 on my coffee. And I think most people would have thought, you're nuts.
Yeah.
Nobody will do that. And now look, it's like, we'll drive across town to get that.
Yeah, talk to my wife.
I know, mine too.
Never driven past a Starbucks we haven't stopped at. That's crazy. Gavin, dude, great. First off, great conversation. Second off, great knowledge. And I'm literally going to pull out a calculator and start running my numbers. So you might get a phone call here in a couple minutes with me just crying, like, Gavin.
And if you're going to raise your prices 10% or more, or don't bother.
Right.
Yeah, right.
What's the point? Like, you have to go through all of the communicate. Now, there's a piece of it, people communication around it. And I think, we at Summit have helped, I don't even know how many. It's got to be 3, 4, 5, 6,000 salons go through price increases. Also, individual stylists go through price increases. And all we really all we want to make sure that people do is they communicate a price increase. The worst thing you can do is to not communicate it. And even though we think is the easiest way, to just surprise them, drop the ticket, and just boom, right on the spot. Hold
on, Gavin. Hold on. Can we debate this out?
Yes, we certainly can.
Because we're the only industry in the world that thinks that we have to inform our clients that we have a price increase. No other industry in the world does that. Your gas station doesn't do it. Your grocery store doesn't do it. Your whoever else, even your doctors don't do it. So why do we feel as an industry that we need to inform all of our guests that we're having a price increase?
Well, I think it's different. I'm not wanting, I agree with you. because I even use that when I'm trying to give someone courage that it's time and let's raise prices. And but what I'm saying is not to send a warning letter. We make fun of, we literally joke about that at Summit. Don't send warning letters. Don't send hey, bring more money on your next visit, save up, like none of that. We're just saying somewhere in the appointment, prior to, it really should be in the consultation, somewhere in there, I need to say, hey, Corey, by the way, I've had a recent slight price adjustment and I wanted you to be aware of it, that my whatever, my haircuts, my color, my whatever has went up about 10%. I just wanted you to be aware of it. And I'm not sending you a letter. I'm not, but here's what we don't want you to do is not to talk about it at all. And then just wait until the end of the appointment. And then just to say, it's going to be X amount today. Right. And I think that's where you raise more likelihood that people will question what was, it seems like it's more this time. And now if you get put in that spot, you're going to have to backpedal a bit of, well, yeah, our prices have gone. And I think it just doesn't look as professional as it could be. So you don't have to do a sign. You don't have to send a letter, but just some sort of communication, I think, is a smart thing to do.
All right, that's fair.
Because all those other examples that you gave, you don't have a personal relationship like you do with your client, right?
That's fair.
So if I have a personal relationship, for me, I feel like, hey, I'll do it the haircut before and said, I just want to let you know that my prices have gone up today. It's still the same, but next time it's blah, blah, blah. And just to give them a heads up. And then just because of my relationship with them, because I do care about them. You know what I mean? Like a gas station, they don't care about us at all. I don't have no relationship with my local gas station. Although, except when I go in there and get coffee.
Yeah, well, my wife definitely has a relationship with the Starbucks people because she's in there 3 times a day.
Right.
Awesome. All right, Gav. We our 20-minute conversation is now just about 45. So, but it was a knowledge-filled 45. So I appreciate it. I know Tony appreciates it, and I'm sure people listening in will appreciate it. Once again, thank you so very much. Thank you for hanging out with us, and Gavin, thank you very much for joining us on your day.
Thank you.
Hey, so there it is. Hey, this is a message that we've been trying to bring, I don't know, for the last couple months, actually since we started the podcast. Hey, so if you like the podcast or if you find that it's useful, please leave us a review, a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review.
But if you don't like it, forget about it.
Yeah, totally forget about this message. We also want to thank Sarah and Blaine from Pretty Gritty. Sarah and Blaine, they are a band out of Portland, Oregon, and we just want to thank them very much for allowing us to use their song, Pleased to Meet You, on our podcast. That's cool. I think you can find, you can find their music on iTunes.
Peace and hair grease.